Welcome to this edition of Between the Lines. The purpose of today's program is to help you understand the company's key fiscal 87 goals and to discuss some of the ways everyone in the organization can help make these goals a reality. This is the second time that Between the Lines will be interactive, giving you the opportunity to ask the questions that are on your mind. First, let's turn to our special guests to learn firsthand about Digital's goals. Joining me today are Ken Olsen, President, Jim Osterhoff, Vice President of Finance, Jack Smith, Senior Vice President of Manufacturing, Engineering, and Marketing, and Jerry Witmore, Vice President of Industry Marketing. Ken, what exactly are the key goals that we're going to be emphasizing this year?
Let's see if we can make them interesting today. My impertinent wife from Finland saw last film yesterday, and she told me that it was as exciting as the educational television from Leningrad on how to drive a tractor. She also said that just like Russian television, the questions never came through. With your help in the audience and challenging a little contest on this platform here, hopefully we can make it interesting and get our message across. The summary of our goals is that we want to be successful and we want to survive. We've created a lot of interest in the competition. It is said that one of our large competitors has a goal, a theme which says, deck, deck. There's also a West Coast competitor who has a banner, which I got one this morning, which says, beat deck. And you can be sure that every one of our competitors out there is out to do what we're doing and to beat us, because we're leading the way today. And the way we can solidify our position, the way we can win this contest, is to be successful in each one of our goals. The goals are improve customer satisfaction, increase our profitability, increase our market share, and to keep improving and implement our product strategy. Security, safety, success comes from these items. People often ask the question, is there any danger of us being taken over by someone? The security, the safety from this is to be successful. First of all, we make the price so high no one can afford us. Secondly, companies that are successful just aren't taken over. And the future of the company is guaranteed by doing a good job today, by making the investments wisely, and by having a product strategy which is one that solves the customer's problems, which solves problems no one else can solve, and to do things that no one else can do. So these four items are the obvious way to assure our future, and we think this is the most exciting thing we can do.
Identifying with the goals is really important in order for employees to help support those goals and turn them into realities. Customer satisfaction, Jack, is something that we hear over and over again, and clearly Ken just said that it's one of our key goals for the coming year, for the current year. How does that relate in the engineering environment and in manufacturing and in the product marketing environment?
Well, sometimes we forget that in our own way, we all are customers. And to simply understand customers, you have to understand yourself. And selling to a customer, as Ken mentioned, is understanding what the customer needs and certainly providing the customer what he needs, the solution to his problem. Sometimes we lose sight of that and we think of salesmanship, which is making sure that your coat matches your pants. As you can see, I wouldn't make a good salesperson. But customer satisfaction is much more than that. The customer wants the solution to his problem. He wants to make sure that the person talking to him understands his problem and understands his problem so he can provide the solution. And then he certainly wants the product when it has been promised to him. And last but not least, he doesn't want it to break. And customer satisfaction is not much more complicated than that. We tend to make it much more complicated than that, but it certainly isn't much more complicated than that. Understand the customer's need, provide them a solution if you have it. If you don't have it, don't sell it to them. Give them the product when you promise to give it to them, and make sure that it doesn't break, and if it does break, make sure you have the resources to fix it. I don't think it's any more complicated than that,
Okay.
actually.
Jerry, as we get closer to the customer, marketing becomes much more important. What are the key marketing goals that we've established for this year?
Well, I think you've already heard Ken mention one of them, which is that we'd like to increase our market share. Why do we want to do that now? It turns out we've always wanted to increase our market share, and in fact, since digital started as a company, it has been continuously increasing its market share. The reason, though, is that we're focusing even more now than in any other time in the past is because we have the strongest product portfolio right now that we've ever had in this company. And now is that opportunity for us to drive to the customers that we believe are the strategic important ones for the long term and increase our position with those customers. In fact, just taking on a point you made, Jack, about needs, one of my favorite marketing slogans I discovered many, many years ago in Northern California, written on the side of a pink cement truck. And what it said was, find a need and fill it. That's what marketing is all about. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus our marketing efforts to those needs that digital's capability fills, and then go out and do it, carry it out, execute. And in fact, we're spending a lot of time working on the strategic side of it, which customers, which applications, which industries, which geographies. But out of that portfolio, we're focusing on increasing our market share, and there's never been a better time. In fact, that's why people have banners saying beat deck, because they know we have a strong position. They understand it as well, if not better than we do. So we've got to go for it. Now's the time.
Jim, when we think about the fiscal goals that we have, it's hard to, and we don't want to ignore some of the great successes we've had that are reflected by our financial results, specifically the report that we just made a couple of weeks ago. What are some of the key factors that led to our coming up with such fine results?
Well, it's fun to look back to fiscal '86 because it was a very good year for us. And we're not so far away from it that we can't still look back once in a while and say,
Enjoy it for a moment.
enjoy it
Just a
until the end of Q1 will be coming up soon enough. If you go back a year and look at what our history was then and what we were looking forward to, we were looking, at the time we were doing the fiscal '86 budget, at 4 years of declining profit margins. And we were in a condition where the industry was not very strong. Still isn't very strong, but it was, if anything, even worse then, because we were coming out of a reasonably good period and going into a low point. And we set some fairly aggressive objectives for ourselves. We said we want to improve our profit margins, which is breaking a 4-year trend, and we need to do that in a period when growth rates are low by historical standards. And I think we succeeded very well in that. We beat the budget both in revenue and we beat the budget in cost. It's the first year in 7 years, I think, that we had beaten the revenue budget. We budgeted $7.5 billion and we came in at 7.6. And we underran the cost budget. So our profit margins improved from, I think it was 6.7% to 10.9% in 1 year, which is a major accomplishment. At the same time,
Does that mean our profit margins are where we need them to be now?
No, they're not at all where we need them to be.
Good news, bad news.
It's tremendous progress in 1 year, but historically we've been in the 16 to 18% range. And I don't think we should take our eye off where IBM is. IBM has typically been in the 20 to 24% range. First, let's get to 16 to 18, and then we'll start looking at 20 to 24. But I think the reason, I think we got there by paying close attention to the fundamentals, some of which we just talked about. Products, very good products, customer satisfaction, quality in everything we do, productivity, which is another way of saying cost reduction, elimination of waste, and planning for the future.
Before we develop some of those
I'd
things,
just like to make a comment relative to what Jim is saying. I think one of the most important factors, both from a marketing point of view as well as a profit point of view, is bringing your products into the market window, which means bringing them in on time and at a point at which you can demand a higher price. Or if you like, you can make a higher profit. And I think that we have significantly improved in recent years our ability to get the product designed to meet the needs of our customers and then get it out in the market. And that has given us the ability to manage and drive our ability to price and then get the return. And that's, I think, a credit to our engineering organization that we've been able to do that. In 18 months, for instance, 90% of the products that the folks out there have to sell are brand new.
time to market was certainly a key goal in engineering for the last couple of years, Jack. Is that the same thing that we'll be focusing on in this coming year and next year?
Well, I think it's going to change a little bit. 3 or 4 years ago, we actually set one priority for ourselves. At that point in time, as we all remember, we had tired products. By any measure, our products were tired at that point in time. And as Jerry mentioned, we knew in the coming years that the major portion of our revenue, if you will, would depend on the introduction of new products into the marketplace. So we chose as our #1 priority getting those products to market. It's important that you only pick one priority, because if you pick 2 priorities, then people start saying, which is the main priority?
Mm-hmm.
Then you start forming committees to try to decide which priority is going to
Well,
be
we
the main
wouldn't do that, Jack.
priority. So in actuality, we picked a major priority, our #1 priority, as getting those products to market. And we indeed did do that, plus or minus a month here and there, but we indeed did do that. As we look out short term, and don't forget short term to us is the next couple of years, it's important that we complete what we get started.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned earlier, if you can't provide the customer the total solution, you shouldn't sell them the product, pure and simple. You just should not sell them the product. And at the current product strategy, I think we understand what the basic product strategy is, but now we have to overlay on top of that what the applications are that the customer needs in order to solve his solution. That's why I think Pete Smith's marketing group and the industry marketing groups are going to be so key to our success in the next couple of years, because they are the conduit between the customer and the product development groups to make sure that we are developing the complete solution to the customer, and that we're not missing a piece of software here, a particular interconnect here, or a box here, so that the product is complete. So our #1 priority for the coming years is to complete what we have going. And I'm sure we'll be as successful as that as we were in the introduction of the new products over the last couple of 3 years.
Okay. I would like to just encourage the viewing audience to ask questions. There's a telephone in the conference room, and if you would please go to it and dial 1, area code 203. The phone number is 790-9031. And when somebody answers the phone, the conference ID number that you want to tell them is 279M. So please call in and we'll try to get to all of your calls. Thank you very much. Okay. Jerry, what are the very specific ways that we go ahead and target markets? I mean, how do we determine that we're going to go after a specific market or a specific account?
Well, the first thing we have to do is some homework around how does the market broken up in terms of industries and applications and products. And then having done that, we start looking at where is the short and long-term opportunity within those markets. We're still in the process of reviewing industries in particular in terms of strategically where do we want to be 5 to 10 years out. But let me give you an example of a couple that we've been spending time on recently. Life insurance companies and food companies represent a new industry focus within service industries, Bob Hughes's area, life insurance companies, and in my area of basic industries, food companies. It turns out that these 2 industries, in terms of the amount of revenue for computers, are extremely large, and we have virtually no presence in either one. About a year ago, we started focusing on those 2 industries, and we started by doing the analysis and determining they were good places for us to be, But then we started working from the top down, and by that I mean calling on executives within those industries first before we tried to sell them anything, and tell them who we were, tell them what we thought we had to offer, and why we thought we ought to be part of their long-term plan in information technology. Win Hindle, who has been on these programs before, was heavily involved personally in the insurance area and calling on insurance companies and helping us develop our strategy. I personally have been doing the same thing with food companies. And it's interesting, within a period of a year, we already have pilot projects in a half a dozen insurance companies and a half a dozen food companies that came as a direct result of our focusing on them. Over time, I'm confident we'll be doing millions of dollars worth of business with those two industries. And we're trying to take that same systematic approach, analyze the market, understand the market, including finding a need and fill it. Industry marketing understands the customer. Applications marketing finds the need, finds the product to fill the need. Together, we bring a solution to the customer. And we're just going to go at it systematically. And those are, I think, two good examples of having done that.
Oh, that's great. We have a call. This call is from Houston, Texas, and what I'd appreciate all callers to do is please give us your name and then ask your question. Go ahead, Houston.
Hello. My name is Mac Pendleton. I'm a sales rep in Houston, Texas. And I'd like to know what our strategy, our long-term strategy is regarding the Unix operating system, well, Ultrix. And that's my question. Thank you.
Ken, would you like to take that one?
Our long-term strategy is to support Unix for those people who want the very best proprietary system. We offer that in VMS. For those who want an industry standard, we offer Unix through Ultrix. We offer additional features for Ultrix. We'll keep offering more because it's very easy for us to offer some of the things that we develop for Unix, for VMS. We also have all the techniques and procedures for storing information that we develop for VMS, and this is a very useful feature for Unix. Part of the strategy for going into Ultrix was just that. Some people want an industry standard system. Some people, when we refused to support Unix, felt we were backward. When we did support Unix, then people looked at both systems, and it's surprising how many picked VMS. So supporting Unix was a good idea. Some people need it. But to our surprise, it was a most effective way in marketing VMS, because it's only then that people would look at both of them and decide that the features in the rich VMS environment was so valuable. But we truly have our heart in it. It fits perfectly with the VMS environment. Now we also say MS-DOS fits with it, and we say very clearly, as we always had, that we can communicate with SNA environment. So with the basis of VMS, we do offer what almost everything people need when it comes to working with other systems. And even though VMS is ours, we love it, it's our own, we still say with all enthusiasm we do support Unix, and we will take care of that part of the market also.
We have another call from Landover, Maryland. Go ahead, Landover.
My name is Forrest Adler. I'm the Area Field Service Manager of the Mid-Atlantic area. I have a question for Jack Smith, please. Jack, you mentioned customer satisfaction and the importance of maintaining high level of uptime. It appears that over the last couple of months, we have had a shortage of some of the 8,000 series computer parts available. Is there a pressure in the system relative to yielding parts to the logistics system versus revenue ships?
There is now.
I was going to start off by saying I was surprised at your question, but I'm really not surprised at your question. As we all know, the 8000 series products have been selling beyond our expectations, if you will. And in situations like that where we have made customer commitments, we're certainly on the learning curve now trying to keep up with some of the commitments we have made to customers simply because our sales are higher than we originally anticipated. That's the good news. The bad news is in situations like that, you do tend to get into sparing problems in the field. But it is an area that has been brought to our attention before you brought it to our attention, and the logistics operation is starting to gear up on their production of those modules also, and I think you'll see that they'll be in the field very, very shortly.
We encourage you to call, and please dial area code 203-790-9031, and when your call is answered, ask for conference ID number 279M. Thank you. When we think about the various products, Jack, and our product strategy, where does our ability to interconnect, the interconnectivity of our products, fall within the element of implementing our current product strategy? Is that part of it, or is that a future, or is it, how much of a priority is that?
Well, it's the name of the game, if you will. I think that's our competitive advantage relative to the rest of the industry. If some of us will remember, I'm sure Ken will remember, this strategy was developed 10 years ago. This isn't something new that we recently decided to develop over the last couple of 3 years. When we first became involved in the concept of distributed processing, which I think is over 12 or 15 years ago, I think the understanding back at that point in time that the key to distributed processing was going to be our ability to interconnect whatever particular piece of this product strategy that we were developing at the time. Our Nets and Com group, which is our basic interconnect group, we have been investing very heavily in that particular group, almost growing twice as fast as any other group in the last 4 or 5 years. So obviously we're committed to that, and it certainly is the glue by which our whole product strategy holds together, and it's our competitive advantage at this point in time. There's no doubt about that, and if we do our homework, it's going to continue to be our competitive advantage in the years to come. So it's absolutely key to the overall product strategy that the interconnectability and our ability of our products to work together and to talk back and forth is key to our position in the industry.
When we begin to market and develop the marketing strategies, is that when we're developing the strategies, how closely is interconnectivity related in there?
Well, I think if you take the concept of distributed computers with the kind of network capability that we've developed and then apply it to companies that are distributed, they might be distributed over a state or over a country or over a world, depending on their size, but they're distributed, then the approach to computing that we're taking fits the organizational structure of most companies perfectly. In fact, that's why they're so interested in using us as the vendor to help them integrate their computers, even when they come from other vendors. Most of the companies I talk to say we're going to zero in on 2 or 3 strategic vendors who are going to do business with us. And digital is always on the list. That's great. Now we have to exploit it. But the reason is because we're the only company in the industry that can connect everything together for our own products, and we can also interface to other products, not the least of which are IBM products. So I think it's crucial.
It's also a key part of our business strategy. Before we did networking in a general, specific way, we built every peripheral for every central processor, which meant there was an enormous amount of inventory, an enormous amount of engineering, an enormous amount of spare parts. You could see in our warehouses, which are now almost empty, as far as the eye could see, disks, almost every one was different for a different system. Today, we build everything for Ethernet, and each computer ties Ethernet. This means that we need only one of each peripheral, and we cut down the inventory, the engineering, the maintenance, and everything is easier. So one of the reasons for our improvement is just this interconnect strategy.
Okay, thank you.
If you look at the market success that we're having, I think that there are an awful lot of things responsible for that. But one of the things that I think is helping us is all the favorable press that we're getting. I think that's introducing us to some new customers.
It's opening some
And-
doors that aren't normally open.
And the two unique features that you read about with respect to digital recently are the communication capability, the networks that we have, and the financial progress that we've made, which is counter to what's happening to all the other companies. Now, those two are not independent from one another, I don't think.
I
But
think that's Ken's point, that it's part of our
it's-
business strategy.
very, very key
There's
element.
another interesting thing about strategy, and it's something we often don't say enough. For any organization, for any person, there's a normal tendency to try to be like everyone else. And every time we've done that, we've gotten into trouble. And every time we've been successful is when we set about in something we believed in, even though the rest of the world didn't do it. When we introduced modules, 1957, they were the only fast, simple, one-step logic modules. Everybody else had the same thing, and it was a difficult job to sell. But it sure was nice to be alone. When we introduced the mini computer, it was so unique, so strange, it was very difficult to sell. And we were ridiculed and laughed at. But compared to making the same thing everybody else was making, it sure was beautiful. As you remember, 3 or 4 years ago, we were ridiculed because we didn't say the personal computer could do everything for the world. We said networking was the important thing. And that was a hard time. But I'd much rather be selling networking today than personal computers today. And I think the important thing is that we have to know what is best and stick with it. And if you follow what the newspapers and magazines say, you're sure to get in trouble. Now, one of the things we said very clearly, and there was weeping and wailing, was we will not go into robots. 5 years ago, robots were obviously the most important thing on the face of the earth. We stayed out of robots, fortunately. Once the newspapers and magazines say it's the hottest thing, you stay clear. If everybody goes into it, there's no need for anybody else. And it's only in those areas which people don't yet see. Now, the problem we have today is convincing a company that they should change their whole way of doing business. They should network everything. Everybody can communicate with everybody else. And those people who never figured out how they did business would have to figure out what they were doing all these years. Those people whose power came because they were the controller of the information flow don't know how to handle their position. And we have a tough time convincing them that we want to revolutionize their business. It's hard. It's like talking to a stone wall sometime. Often the best we can do is infiltrate them a little at a time. But it sure is nice to have a message which nobody else has.
That's right.
You would talk at a drop of a hat to them, say, at any time at all. We just can love to talk to them. And that's so much more fun than saying, we got another IBM lookalike PC we'd like to sell you.
Something special. We do have another call. It's from Bedford, Massachusetts. Go ahead, Bedford.
Too close.
Okay. Well, hello?
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yes, my question is for Ken. I'd like to know how you felt about the success of Deck World, and is there another Deck World in digital's future?
I, like most people who went to Deck World, were just overwhelmed with its size, its professionalism, its elegance, how nicely everything was done. And when the world criticizes us for not knowing how to do marketing, they usually mean we don't know how to spend money on television. But I think that was a magnificent piece of marketing, and I think all of you who worked on it, and all of you who made the products, and all of you, those of you who had part in it, did a magnificent job of marketing. And I think Deck World is a part of digital from now on. We'll probably make it slightly longer than a year in the cycle, so we won't have one next February. We're limited by facilities, too. Boston is probably the place we have to be because most of our equipment is here. but there's no nice facilities. So we're still planning to have one next year. When and where, I think, is still in doubt. But after that, it should be easy, and so definitely Deck World is our primary way of marketing. Now, next month, we're having one in France. Again, I think it's the third one, and it is the same thing, slightly smaller scale, but with equal enthusiasm and competence, and it has been most effective in Europe, just like Deck World was in this country. So it is our way of marketing, and it is magnificent.
We have another call now. It's from Piscataway, New Jersey. Please,
Hello?
hello?
Yes, my name is Dave Rosenwald. I'm a sales exec here in Piscataway, and I and my team work in a very avant-garde research environment where we're beginning to see increasing competition, especially in the workstation area from Sun and others. And I was wondering if you could all comment on our proposed workstation strategies, future strategies.
Jack, would you like to?
Take that.
Sure.
Do we talk about unannounced products? I
No.
assume we talk about unannounced products. We don't talk about unannounced products.
There's going to be something.
Well, we
He means he's putting enough money into it. Something
something has to come out. We're certainly committed to the workstation area. That should be obvious to everybody at this point in time, although it's taking us a little bit of time to get involved in workstations. We certainly are committed to it, and as Ken said, we're certainly putting the right level of investment in it. We will be announcing the product soon. What I mean by soon, in less than 6 months, and maybe not more than 4. So that leaves us with 5 months, doesn't it? So we'll be announcing a product in relatively the next 4 or 5 month period of time. We have been saying for some period of time now that we would have a microvax on a desk, and we will have, I said microvax, a vax on a desk, and I'm sure we will have a vax on a desk. We intend to improve our current graphics relative to this new introduction, and indeed we will have products that will cover the total spectrum, not only the low end, the mid-range, and the high end. Initially, it'll be the low end, 30K level, around the $30,000 level or lower, and then move into the mid-range and then into the high range with the higher resolution graphics. All this will be happening in the next 14 to 16 months. So we intend certainly to be a force in the workstation market, certainly in this fiscal year.
That's exciting. We have another call from
Let me make
Bedford.
a few more comments on
Excuse
that.
me. Yeah, go
We
ahead.
were slow in getting into the workstation market for a very simple reason. Our contribution there is to make workstations based on VAX. So we didn't start until we had the VAX microprocessor. Our future work in that will be based on the VAX. So this means we will not do everything. We will not make the generic machines. We will not make most of the specialized machines. Our machines are those based on VAX, and VAX because it's so easy to do the software and because it does the computation so well. And this is our contribution. But in that area, we don't plan to be second to anyone.
Okay. We have a call from Bedford, please. Go ahead.
This is Christina Masadas from Bedford, and my question is, do we have any concrete programs in place to achieve our goal and to be #1 in customer satisfaction, and how can we tell when we have reached our goal?
Jack Shields.
Survey.
Jack Shields, in the last 15 or more years that he's been running parts of the field, has organized surveys probably more than anyone else in the industry. So he can tell you everything about everything. And I think one of the reasons he's been so successful is that he's been keeping track of these things. Now, we do very well in the surveys. We have to not only be best, we have to be significantly better, because people always expect the bigger one to be better, and they assume that, and we have to be so much better that everybody acknowledges it. So we have a ways to go, but we do have the ways of finding out, and the system tells us just where we rate in all areas. You know, there's one thing about a computer maker, boy, can we generate data, and we got it in this area. Don't ever ask for it. He'll overwhelm you.
That's one of those things there, though, where I think it's dangerous to ever think that you've reached your objective. There are always improvements that can be made from where you are.
Yes.
And there's another interesting thing. If you notice, a company that is number one is usually hated by a large fraction of the customers. And our big competitor, not long ago, was disliked quite vehemently. Since they got into trouble, people don't dislike them so much. And so we got to remember that as we're successful, that comes along with the success.
I think one other point on the use of a survey, it's one thing to survey it. It's another thing to take the details and apply them back in the way you're running your operation and systematically go about eliminating the problems that our customers raise. We are doing the latter. We are doing it in a very systematic way. And in fact, it touches all elements of the company, everything from the way we design products, to the way we design our service strategies, to the way we market them, to the way we support them. It's pervasive. Customer satisfaction has to start with us saying that it's the top goal in the company. And then everybody is a part of it. Everybody in the field, everybody at corporate headquarters, everybody everywhere.
I think we also have to keep in mind that the number one priority in the customer's mind is to get his job done, to have the solution to his problem. Right. That is his number one priority in the customer's mind. His number one his priority relative to his satisfaction is to get his job done. And I think that's important that we keep that in mind.
Another point I'd like to make on customer satisfaction is that the way I look at it, it's a way of solidifying your gains. We can make market share gains, and I think we are making market share gains now on the strength of product. But unless you have something permanent to hold that gain, it can slip away from you as soon as the product advantage isn't there as strongly. And customer satisfaction is one way, I think, of locking in whatever gains you can make.
Not to worry. Product advantage will always be
I'll always do that.
Good. I'm glad to
I
hear
like
that.
both.
There's one more interesting part of customer satisfaction that we sometimes forget in our rational, analytical way. I one time I watched the customer service desk at Sears Roebuck just down the road here. And it's an eye-opener. We don't do business with consumers directly, but to some degree their weaknesses go over to our customers. You lose quickly all respect for consumers when you watch them. They're unfair. You know, in September, somebody brought the hose back they used all summer and said they didn't need it. And it was dirty, filthy, it's been out in the garden all year long. They returned it in September, and Sears took it back. When you do everything right, you still have a problem making the customer happy. So besides the technical aspects of service and product development, you also have to learn how to make the customer happy, even though he is unfair, prejudiced, and benighted. So that part we have to work on also.
I agree.
We do encourage you to make calls. The number is 203-790-9031, and don't forget to tell them the corporate ID number is 279M. Thank you. When we think about the customer satisfaction, I think sometimes identifying with that goal is hard for an individual, and other words are used. I know certainly in engineering and manufacturing you use other words that lead to customer satisfaction, such as increased reliability and that kind of thing, Jack. Are there other programs that are in place that really the end result is satisfying our customers more?
Well, I mentioned the three elements at the beginning and trying to understand customer satisfaction. The first one, only sell him the solution he requires, understanding his business. That relates to what the product development people are doing with Pete Smith and his organization. Pete is working with the industry marketing people, if you will, to understand what the actual needs of the customers are and translating that back to the product development people so that they can build those solutions for the customer. The second area, of course, is delivering the product on time, or when the customer contracted, if you will, for that product. And I think the close interaction now between manufacturing and sales is allowing us to do a far better job than we have certainly in the last 10 years. It's interesting, when we started the coupling between manufacturing and sales. If we remember back at that point in time, we were telling the salespeople, tell us what you want, don't change it, we'll manufacture to it, everybody will be happy. And obviously we tried that for a couple of years. I think Jerry will remember that when he was product line manager. Well, life isn't that simple.
It's probably the customers didn't cooperate.
That's right. So obviously we weren't going to win with that kind of strategy. So what we decided to do is put manufacturing, if I can use, into a real-time mode, i.e. into a reactive situation. Try to get close to the field, try to understand what was happening in the field, shorten your lines of supply, increase your plant throughput so that when we saw changes in the trends in the field, we could react to it, rather than going back to the field and saying, you ordered this, it didn't work, we told you so, what's the problem? So by getting manufacturing in a real-time mode, working with the industry marketing people and Pete's people, and indeed with the field themselves, now we have a better opportunity to react to the trends that are happening in the field. And I think that's the second piece of customer satisfaction. And the third one I mentioned, of course, was customers don't want things to break. Now, obviously, things do break, but customers don't want things to break. And a good part of that reliability issue is in the design of the product itself, as well as the speccing of the components. So engineering and manufacturing, the close coupling between engineering and manufacturing, is getting our product development people to better understand how they could design reliability into the product. And at the same time, getting our manufacturing people to understand that they can help by understanding what the specs of the components are and do a better job of helping engineers spec the components so that we come out with a higher reliability product. So the three areas remain basically the same as I think they have for the last 25 years. Give the customer what he needs, not what he wants at all times, but what he needs. Make sure that you fulfill your contract obligations relative to delivery, and build a reliability into the product so, quote unquote, doesn't break.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
So you asked, what can we do? One thing we can all do, is learn from our experience as we are consumers and as we buy things. Literature which doesn't explain the product. Salesmen who don't know the product. Stores that can't tell whether they have it in stock or not. Long delivery, 6 months delivery on a sofa, and then it comes 9, 12 months later. And then when you get a product, there's so much cardboard with it, you can't get rid of it. You know, all of these things, we should remember how we would do it. And then when it's our opportunity to help digital, make sure we do it wisely. And then we should be sensitive to the people who we service on the little things, like getting rid of the cardboard. Every little thing.
Okay, we have a call from Maynard, Massachusetts. Go ahead, Maynard.
Hi, my name is Alma Antoniotti, and I have a question concerning the contract that Digital just signed with Raytheon. I wondered if you could give us some of the specifics as to what will be Digital's involvement. And also, I wondered if this contract is at all connected with President Reagan's SBI program. Thank you.
The reason we had the contract with Raytheon is very simple and very obvious. We also have had for some time the contract with Norden to do the same thing. We are only set up to do civilian type products, civilian quality, civilian reliability, and civilian price. The military needs our type of computer. It's our country. We want them to have the very best. And so we do what we can to make sure they have the best computer, which we're absolutely confident is our VAX. And so we have a contract with 2 military manufacturers to put our computer in the form which is militarized. They have all kinds of red tape. They test every component. They keep records of everything, things that we just don't want to do. And so we're happy to have them do it. It pays to us very little in the way of license fees, but as the government uses this in ruggedized applications, they have to generate the software in civilian places or have backup computers that are R-type in R-type environment. The question, will it be used in this Space Wars program? I think it's unlikely, although we don't know. We don't get involved. I don't think that program would be in the form that would use something like this for many, many years if it ever gets that far.
Okay, we have another question from Dallas, Texas. Go ahead, Dallas.
Yes, this is Glenn Pelishok from Dallas, and this is actually a group question. We would like to know if there is a corporate focus or strategy in place to ensure that digital employees utilize and take advantage of our own products to better improve our productivity and our own operating efficiency.
So we're talking.
I think the question relates to using it within the company to run the company. It might also relate to running our personal lives. But certainly on the running our company side, we're already using our own computers. In fact, Digital is the largest company on the Fortune 100 that only uses VAXes to run its company. And
It's probably also our largest customer.
that's also probably true.
We get them at a discount.
That's true. But one of the things we're trying to do is to zero in more from a marketing point of view on some of the uniqueness that we have in the way we use our computers and let our customers learn from what we've done and apply the same capability. As a for instance, we have a program now and that we've taken some very senior plant managers. We call them manufacturing corporate account managers. And they're getting involved with our corporate account people, and it's kind of a reverse technology flow. They're saying, here's the way Digital uses its own computers to run its own manufacturing plants. Now let's see how we might help you.
Another take on that question may be, are we educating employees about how to use the computers? I'm thinking of the learning centers and also the computer program in terms of discount for employees. I think that's still in existence.
Yes, and we do encourage that. The products we have now are less likely to be used at home. Very few homes. I've been trying to figure out how I can use a network at home, but I can't for the life of me.
Electronic mail.
I rewired a house and I put Ethernet cable in, but I don't know how I'm going to use it. But I can tell you how I think we made a mistake in the past. When we went in the personal computer business, we said after we satisfy the need, we'll sell the computers to our own to our own employees at a discount. Probably one of the most serious mistakes we made. We didn't have the machine developed to the point where anybody could plug it in and it would work. And if we worked with our own employees first, before we sold it to the public, we would have solved all of those problems. And the people in charge were just so self-confident, they just were so sure that when they designed it, it would work, but they never tested it. And so we should have, 3 or 4 years ago. Now, it probably saved us from an awful lot of grief. We got into trouble then. If we were overwhelmingly successful like we might have been, we'd probably be in terrible trouble today. But I'm still embarrassed by the fact that we made that mistake, that we didn't take care of our own people. Now, for example, we offered 2-month delivery. And personal computers are like ice cream cones. When you want one right away. You're not going to wait 2 months. And we had to learn that from our employees. And when they plugged it in, nothing happened. We just didn't supply with those initial machines all the things you needed. And also, we gave no end of cardboard. If you brought 2 home, you couldn't live in your house. We should have learned all of those things with ourselves. And that I'm embarrassed by. And I think, unfortunately, the things we make today don't lend themselves nicely to home applications. A few of them do. But whenever possible, we should encourage that.
The question's an appropriate one, though, because if you look at how we use computers in the company, we don't do a very good job. We really don't do a very good job. We do a fairly good job with engineering productivity, do a little CAD CAM work. But if you look at integrated office, which is going to be a large market for us, which is a large market for us, how many integrated offices do we really have in the company? Ken did some things down around his office there. But from the standpoint of integrated office, we haven't done a lot. In the area of MIS, I think you'd look at our MIS operation, And it looks like it did 10 or 15 years ago. Yet we talk about distributed processing. Now, how much of that MIS applications have we offloaded into departments from the standpoint of distributed processing? Not a lot. So for a very, very large corporation like ours, and we're selling to other large corporations, we have an awful lot to learn, which gives us an opportunity because we have a built-in customer. But we really haven't taken advantage of that to the extent I think we should. We'd like to say we
But the more,
did,
more
but
of
we
that
didn't.
we could do, the more of our own departments that we could demonstrate to our customers that we're using our style of computing to run our company, then the more credibility we have with our customers. And I think you're right, we don't have enough, and we need more. But we do have some places
We have
where we have
some,
some
but,
good
not-
stories to tell.
We have a few good stories. There's no
We
doubt
learn,
about
we
that.
learn something about our customers by looking at ourselves.
That's right.
Because they have exactly the same problems, in fact, probably a little bit worse than we have.
That's right.
They
And you
don't,
can-
they don't have
Doing
mostly
this.
Well,
digital
and you can be
computers.
more critical with yourself than you can with a customer, as Ken was pointing out.
We do a good job in office, though. We have made electronic office all through the company. We got a lot. We got a
We
long
have
way to-
electronic mail.
and word processing
Well.
and filing.
Well, sharing of files, I'm not quite convinced we do as good a job on that.
We have a
Electronic mail and
We have
word
a plan.
processing.
We have a plan for a worldwide financial system.
I'm
So
sure we
that's-
do.
That's moving along now.
We have a
Have in 2
plan
or 3
for
years.
everything.
I hope this is more than that.
We have time for one more question before we close the program. From Bedford, Massachusetts. Go ahead, Bedford.
Hello, my question has to do with employee satisfaction. Will digital offer a benefit or a program of benefits aimed at supporting today's families' needs for childcare?
That's a hard one. Most people who've done it have gotten into trouble. The government doesn't help because they keep making rules of all the features you have to add. And you almost, for a while there, you had to hire one babysitter for every employee that put a baby in there. And, or it was almost close to that. So we haven't yet figured out how. The need is there, the desire is there, but so far no one has demonstrated an effective way of doing it, and we haven't figured out how. It's so far just too difficult.
It's a program being researched, I believe, by the Employee Relations
Yes,
Department. isn't
yes,
it? Yeah.
again.
Okay.
People start them for a while and report a great success, but in time
Peter out.
they peter out, yes.
Steps to be taken carefully, I guess.
Yes.
Yes, okay. We do have one more call, and we are going to take it. It's from Maynard, Massachusetts.
This is Lana Lee. I'm calling from Parker Street. I'd like to support Jack Smith's statement that within the MIS department, we do not use our computing strategy very well internally from management of the information. What I'd like to ask Jack is the reason why we do not have a good MIS strategy of computing, is it because within the management structure, we do not have a management architecture whereby the business processes is clearly identified and articulated? And what are we going to do about that?
Well, I couldn't agree more with you. We do not have the architecture. And as we've found out throughout the years, you can't leap into product development, any piece of product development, without first understanding the architecture. And in the area of MIS, which sometimes gets mixed up with transaction processing, and maybe it should get mixed up with transaction processing from time to time, we don't have an architecture. We do have a group now that is focused in on MIS in transaction processing. It works with Bob Glorioso. I spoke to Bob Glorioso this morning. He feels that although they haven't got the architecture to the level that they need it at this point in time, they do understand what has to be done. They have hired some top people to work in that area, and Bob feels very, very confident that in the next couple of months that we will have our arms around the architecture And once we have that, then the product development will follow it very, very shortly. But I couldn't agree with you more. You just can't leap into this product development without without understanding what particular architecture you want to build your product strategy around. And we do have a focus on that now, and I think we'll see Bob coming forward in the next couple of months with an integrated, not only integrated product strategy, but an integrated product strategy based on an architecture.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you all for joining us today. We have to wrap up the program, but I appreciate your participation. And thank you all for watching and for asking us your questions. We hope you've had a better understanding now of digital's goals and your part in meeting those goals. I hope you also join us for our next edition of Between the Lines. It's scheduled for Friday, November 7 at 12 noon Eastern Time. Before you leave your viewing room, please take a couple of minutes to fill out the questionnaire that you'll find in the room. That will help us understand whether or not this edition of Between the Lines has met your objectives for additional information. We look forward to talking with you again on November 7th. Thank you very much.